Hey guys, this is Eric Cronover from Nerdy Geek Talk, source for all your nerdy geeky needs, here with episode 3 of Journey to Toy Design. Now, in the last two episodes, I went over making sure you want to do toy design, pros and cons of doing so, 2, where to apply, and now episode 3, this episode, is about it's about choosing which school to go to, because there are pros and cons to both, so I'm going to go over the pros and cons of each of those schools. Now, the main 5 schools that I mentioned last time that I applied to are Otis, FIT, Purdue, Ohio State, and RIT. FIT is Fashion Institute of Technology. RIT is Rochester Institute of Technology. Um, so those are the 5 I went to that I applied to. I came to the conclusion of Purdue, but not everyone will, because there's certainly different aspects to look at and decide what's the most important to you. There isn't a right answer for any of these. So the main 3 to consider are Otis, FIT, and Purdue, because those are the main 3 that John Warren pointed out, but there are benefits to the others, albeit smaller ones. But let's get into it. So going over the pros for all of the schools. First off, Otis. You're going into toy design. You're getting a 4-year degree in toy design once you get there, which is great. It's really fun. You're already learning to specialize in the exact field that you want to do, not even just design in general. You know that you are doing toy design, not even just product design. And you will certainly make connections, because since they are one of the only 2 toy design programs in the world, they are certainly hooked up with Hasbro, Mattel, other toy companies that are well aware of them, and they definitely go to people there to hire from. So you have connections, and you are already specialized in what you want to do. Now, FIT has the same benefit of toy design, albeit you have to kind of go through a first degree before you get to that degree, but still the specialty of one of the only 2 schools in the world with a toy design program. And so you'll be there learning actual toy design stuff, and you'll be going to Hasbro and Mattel with those connections and hopefully getting a job there, already specialized in what you want to do. Now, Purdue does not have toy design. It has industrial design, which is product design in general. So what's the big benefit there? So the big benefit that I'll mention for all the rest of these schools, the industrial design, is that while you're not super specialized in toy design yet, you are aware of how to make a product, and therefore aware of how to make a toy. Now, there are different mindsets, things like that you need to have whenever you're going in to make a toy, but that's also part of the process of learning while working at the company. Most of them did not have toy design degrees. A lot of them had product design, industrial design degrees in general before they went into toy design, so they learned it on the job. But it also leaves you open to being able to do more things. So if you can't get a job at Hasbro, Mattel, any toy company whenever you first start out like you want to, you're not going to be out of work, because there's a billion different design opportunities out there, and you're a industrial design. You can design almost any type of product. So it certainly leaves your options open. Now, if you want to go straight into toy design, you may have to, if you don't make it right away, you may have to have a different job for a couple of years. At least if you have the industrial design program, industrial design degree, you will be able to do design work in other fields, which will only strengthen your skills and make you more appealing to them than if you got a toy design degree and then couldn't get a job there, and you had to get some other job that didn't use those skills for several years before you could apply again, and then you wouldn't have even used those skills in years. So there is the basically safety net right there, is that industrial design, you have a lot more to fall back onto if you don't make it in toy design at first, which isn't something that's pleasant to think about, but it's certainly important to, because you don't want to leave yourself open to just being dropped and then having no options left. Because if you don't make it at first, but you keep designing, chances are you will have more chances that eventually you'll make it. So the other benefit for Purdue specifically, because that's for all the ones that have industrial design, is that Purdue has strong connections with Hasbro. One of the people in the hiring department, like in charge of hiring, went to Purdue, and so he certainly likes to get Purdue graduates in there. Also, one of the former designers of Transformers, whose name also happened to be Eric by chance, so that's kind of funny. But I don't know his last name. I can't remember off the top of my head. But went to Purdue, and so the dean has offered to put me in contact with him. So hopefully soon I will be. But also, like I said, they have very strong connections with the people in charge of hiring there. So that is a very, very strong advantage. Now, whether it's as strong as the toy design schools, debatable, kind of depends on the person too. But certainly, there are tight Hasbro connections. They like to work with Purdue students because of their involvement with the school in general and, having people that have gone there. Now, the other two, Ohio State. Ohio State has the industrial design program, so that's safety net to fall back onto, as I mentioned before. The only other real advantage, because as far as I know, they do not stand, like their industrial design program is not bad at all, it will be recognized, but it doesn't seem to be like a nationally acclaimed one or like one that seems really good, gets lots of attention. So it's just good. The thing that would stand out is that I'm assuming, like Purdue, they can offer to put you in contact with certain alumni. That is the school that John Warden went to for his industrial design program. So they could possibly put you in contact with John Warden, which would give you a very strong connection at Hasbro. Now, the thing is, I don't know how likely or unlikely it is that they could give you that connection right away. I don't go there, but I am aware that he is an alumni there, and that schools do like to hook up their students with alumni in certain fields relative to what they wanted to do. So, having a connection with John Warden would certainly be a good idea and is something to consider if Ohio State works for you in terms of location, money, all that, because those are things you have to consider on your own. RIT has a pretty well recognized industrial design program. So while they don't have as many connections like everyone else does, you do have the safety net to fall back onto, and you do have a more recognizable industrial design program versus probably Ohio State's. Now the thing is, I can't say for sure that everyone's going to be like really wanting the RIT graduates so bad over anyone else, but I do know that they are widely considered a pretty darn good program, so having that reputation is not a bad thing. Now moving on to the cons of all the school. Otis, first off, it's in LA. So the location, for me, that was a big con. If you're already out there, and don't get me wrong, I like California, but it's super far away from me, and the travel and all that would be super, super expensive, and also the living expenses for there are really, really expensive. So if money's not a problem for you at all, then certainly give that some serious consideration. But if money isn't just flowing for you, like a lot of people, which I myself was included, Otis might be one of the really tougher options. Now the thing is, they do have that toy design specialty. The other con for them is that the toy design program, if you don't make it into toy design right away, you don't have that safety net of product design in general to fall back onto. You do have a degree in toy design, not industrial design, so your options are more limited. So it is something to consider. I know that if you're watching these and like you're clearly wanting to go into toy design, the thing is, you're thinking, well, I want to go into toy design. You might not get it right away. That's a serious consideration you have to think about, is that you might have to spend a couple of years before you do make it in, which, if you keep working hard at it, you will make it in at some point, but it totally depends on just if you make it in right then or not. The safety is the big key factor in having the industrial design versus if you go to Otis, you just have that toy design. So something to consider. FIT, same thing with you don't have that industrial design safety net to fall back onto. You just have a toy design degree. Now the other thing that kind of sucks about FIT is that, again, cost, because you're in New York City. That's expensive living. But you don't even get toy design right away. Like Otis, you apply and you're pretty much guaranteed that you get to pick toy design. You get to declare that as your major. With FIT, you have to take a 2-year degree and different types of design. As I said, I don't remember the exact list, but interior design was the one I found closest, which is not that close. It's not anything like product design. So you have to take a 2-year design, and it might be something that interests you. So if there is a degree that interests you that they have on that list, that you would do that 2-year degree first in a different type of design and then get the toy design degree, that's great. Then you have specialty in 2 types of design. That is great, but the thing is, if you want to do product design specifically, if you want to do product design in general, like that's what you want to go into, but you also specifically want to go into toy design, if you go to FIT, you do one of the other degrees first, and then you have to apply again to get into the 2-year program for the toy design. If you don't make that toy design program, you're not even in product design in general. So that's something to heavily consider, along with the fact that you don't have that specialty, and you don't have that safety net of industrial design whenever you do get the tour design, if you do. So that's why FIT, I don't really like the way their program's set up, but if you are interested in one of the other programs that they have on that list, then definitely consider it because that may be worthwhile, very worthwhile to you. Just it does not personally apply to me. Now Purdue, disadvantage there, you're not specialized in toy design. In all fairness, they do have some, they like even have some Hasbro classes once you get into your very much later years of toy design. But they don't have that specific toy design degree, which it's up to you whether you want to consider that a positive or a negative. You won't be doing as much toy design in your years of schooling, which, you know, not as fun, but in terms of safety of your career, it's probably more likely to go with the industrial design. But again, having that toy design specialty makes you stand out a lot. Now, the other thing to consider with Purdue is that there's a sophomore year review where, so after freshman year and then after sophomore year. So you go through all those 2 years taking industrial, you take design and drawing classes, building up a portfolio, and you'll have that portfolio and they will be all broken down, look at, and only the top 18 or so students get to move on to junior and senior year. Now, once you pass that sophomore review, you are guaranteed you have those last 2 years and you have your program, assuming you pass your classes. If you don't make it though, because sometimes they'll accept that sometimes by the time you get to sophomore year, there's only like 19 left, and so they'll either take all 19 or maybe 1 or 2 people don't make it. Either way, your chances are very, very good. But some years there's about 60, and so when you're taking 18 out of 60 students, that's not super favorable chances. So it's by chance who you end up even having around by then, because a lot of people drop out in the beginning of the year for that program because it is a tough program. But it totally depends on how many people you have left and then how good they all are and how good you are. It all depends on how much you work. But assuming you don't pass that sophomore review, your options are to take another year, like essentially do another sophomore year and build up your portfolio again, which they've said, you know, that is an extra year of school and you have to pay for an extra year of school. But a lot of people, once they build up that second year portfolio, they usually do get in, but you do run the risk of not getting it again, and then that is another year of school you just wasted all that money on. Your other option, if you don't make it, is to just switch to another degree. Problem is, there isn't really another degree that super strongly fits toy design, so that's the problem. So that's another thing to consider is, do you really want to have to go through that sophomore year? Now, Ohio State, their cons are somewhat similar in the fact that you don't have the toy design specialty, but they have less connections than Purdue does because there's only John Warden essentially, and it's not even a total guarantee that you can get hooked up with him. The other thing is that they don't have a sophomore review, but they have a process in the very beginning of the year where they nail out people, and it's once you start attending. So, and it doesn't have to do with your design, so I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me, and that's why I totally just kind of abandoned them, even though that is the school that John Warden went to, so I'd considered it. I didn't like the way that was set up. In terms of they accept a lot more students than they can have in their industrial design program because they can only have around 20. But the thing is, you submit your portfolio for the application in general, but they don't really, they use that to get the select people that they have. So like around 50 to 60, I'm assuming it's a lot of people still. But once you're in, then they go through another process during your first year that isn't evaluating artwork, stuff like that, where they decide who gets in, who doesn't. You have to like do more applications. So there's a chance that you could get shifted into another degree your first year that you don't even want, that isn't relative to what you want to do, even though they say that they can get things that you, if you know what you want to do, they can try to find another degree that fits that. It doesn't exactly work all that well for product design. That's not something that you can really switch up. So that's another thing to consider on whether you want to take your chances with that. Now, RIT, I believe, now again, they have the most limited connections because they don't have a lot of people at Hasbro that I know of. They didn't make that very clear. They do have a lot of people with, I think it's Fisher-Price. So you could certainly get into the toy design industry with some of their connections. But again, if you want to go to Hasbro, like Transformers, stuff like that, that would be more like you take your chances applying there with your own industrial design program degree, all that. But you don't have a lot of strong connections, so your chances are a bit lower. But getting into toy design, they can get you to Fisher-Price. So you could go from there, then to Hasbro. Your chances are a lot more likely because you've been working in the toy industry. But it is a different type of toy if you're working for Fisher-Price. So debatable. Also, I believe that once you apply there, you do have to submit a portfolio. So that's another thing to think about. But I believe they only take the amount of industrial design students that they can take right away. Like, I don't think you have a sophomore review or another thing. It's possible, I could be wrong on that, but I believe that once you're in, you're in. So if a lot of places, it's not like that. Otis, you're pretty much guaranteed. FIT, you're definitely not. Purdue, you're definitely not. Ohio State, you're definitely not. RIT, I believe, is the only other one that you're pretty much guaranteed once you're in to be in that program till the end, assuming you pass your classes. So those are all things to think about. Also, their locations, because Otis is in LA, FIT is New York City, Purdue's in West Lafayette, Indiana, Ohio State is in Columbus, Ohio, and RIT is in Rochester, New York. So the locations are another thing to consider on which school's right for you. That's all personal. That's not something I can really go over. I will say that I did not go to the school that's closest for me. So it is important to not just say, this school's closest to me and this school's the cheapest. That's clearly the best one. While that is important to balance out, because money and distance, stuff like that, that is important to think about. But those are not the only factors. I didn't pick the one that was the cheapest and the closest, but I also didn't pick the one that was the farthest away, most expensive, and the most specialized one I want to do. I picked what I thought was the best balance. So I ended up going with Purdue because I was really a fan of the connections they seem to have. Also, they offer me a decent amount of scholarships, but mainly the connections with Hasbro that I really, really, really like. So we'll see how that ends up going for me, but these are basically my pros and cons on that you need to consider when you're thinking about where do you want to go. And if you're thinking about another school, just list out the pros and cons. That's the most important thing, is to list out the pros and cons of everywhere and get it out of your head where you think is the best option, and look at a actual list and which has the most pros, which has the most cons, and just which has the best balance of those for you. So definitely think about that, and I think that's about it for this episode. So thanks for watching. Check me out on Twitter at Eric Crowbar, and that's about it. So like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.